So hi again. Now let's continue the second session for Azure best practice. Again, when you work with customer and during for architectures workshop or try to provide him the uh, best practice for Azure architect. So you have to using this for cloud adoption framework, and let's continue the all best practice. So the last session we continue or we completed the user strong network, the logic, then we jump to logic segment subnet. The last one will be adapt zero trust. So today let's for a four will be control routing behavior. Control routing behavior. So let's just wait for okay, for control routing behavior. Let's for first one we have a VM here. Okay, we have VM and we have appliance and we have another VM. Also we have on-premise, as we mentioned before. We have the internet here, and we have this in virtual network, and this in virtual network, and we have another VM here also. Okay, so when you put the VMs on a virtual network, okay, the VM1, VM2. So again, when you put the VMs on a VNet, on Azure VNet, the VM can connect to other VNet in the same virtual network, even on other VM are different subnet. So why? Actually, this is possible because a collection of system route enabled by default allow of communications. So we have something called system route. Okay, so this default route allow VM on the same virtual network here to initiate communication with each others and with the internet. But when the internet, you have just highlighted something here for outbound communication to the internet only. Okay, so also the default system route are useful deployment for some scenario, because this time when you need to customize routing configuration for your deployment, we can configure for a next hub. So if you have a next hub here in another locations, so you have to working with routing table. Okay, so if you ask me, you have this question in your mind. Now we talk about control routing behavior. What is the recommendations? So the recommendation here, which will be, we recommend it to use or to configure something called user defined route, UDR. So we recommended that to configure UDR when you deploy a security appliance for a virtual network. But again, you have to be note this one. User defined routing are not required because it's default coming in system route. But if you have next hop here, you have to be working on user defined. Okay, this will be a number 4. So let's jump with number 5. It will be users virtual or VNet appliance. Actually, these questions, it's coming usually when working with customer, and he asking me, are we can using another third-party appliance? So let's see. Firstly, network security group, NSG, plus UDR, network security group, and UDR can provide a certain measure of network security at the network transport layer. It's called OSI, if you remember. Okay, But in some situation, you need to enable security at high level of stack, especially when I'm working actually with financials or a confidential company. So in some situation, we have to use it like that. So we recommended in this one to deploy Azure or not Azure, to deploy virtual network appliance providing by Azure Portal. How we can find this one? For Marketplace, Azure Marketplace. You can search about it. It's simply. So Azure Network Security applies can deliver you have to remember this, a better security more than the network level controllers provide. So the network security capability of a virtual network security appliance included a lot of things. That's why we included. First one, we have a lot of things today. Okay, first one, firewall. What the thing is, we have something, it's called interventions detections and intervention preventions. And also, if you need it for vulnerability, you have vulnerability. That's why we recommend it for network virtual appliance. So we have here for firewall, intervention detections, intervention prevention, and also vulnerability management. And actually, we can export this one. And also, what about application? We have for application control. So what about network? We have also for network based anomaly detection. Okay, what about web? We have also for web filtering. Okay, what about antivirus? They have antivirus. So what about for a net? We have botnet protections. So as I mentioned, network security appliance can deliver better security than what network level controller provides. As why for all features what you have. So this is number 5. Let's jump for number 6 for a best practice here. So we have to work with deploy perimeter network for security zone. Deploy perimeter network security zone. So let's go here for this architecture to explain. So this on-premise, we have here subnet for DMZ, as you see here. Okay, so the perimeter network, it's called DMZ, is physically or logically network segment that provide an extra layer of security between your assets and your internet. That's why actually for me as Muhammad, when I work with any customer, I have to be recommended that, because perimeter network are usefully you can focus your network access control management, and also we can work with monitoring, logging, and reporting on devices that's in edge area or Azure VNets. So again, Azure perimeter network is where you typically enable something called DDoS prevention, included detections, including the rule sum of policy or web filtering or network and malware, as I mentioned in the last one. Okay, so the network security device is between the internet and the Azure VNet and have the interface for both network. So let's back here for my board, and you will ask me here, what is recommendation here for deploy perimeter network security zone? We have two things here. We have Azure firewall and we have third party. Okay, so here we can use Azure firewall or a third party solution as an extra layer of security between your assets and the internet. So for this one we called Azure firewall or Azure natives. So The Azure firewall, we have like the web application firewall in application gateway. So this offer basic a security advantage. So what is the advantage here for Azure firewall? Firstly, Azure firewall. When we call Azure firewall, we have to say it like a fully settled, a fully firewall as a service provided by Microsoft. And also we have a high availability here. We have HA, and also we have a scalability. Okay, and we have something good here for full qualified domain name filtering, and also support for OWASP, and also it's simply, and we can configure with another firewall even we have third party. For third party to deploy perimeters here, so the third party offering, you can search actually, as I mentioned, you can search in Azure Marketplace for a next generation firewall. You can just search like that in GFW. So in GFW for a next generation firewall, and other third-party offering that provide a familiar security tools and enhancement level for a network security. And actually, when I work with customer, I'm not I'm not telling you have to use Azure firewall. Maybe have another firewall, or he likes some firewall. I just try to be explain. You have to go with marketplace, or this firewall you have to be in marketplace to be configured, and maybe this third party when you configure might be more complex. So you have to be flexibility in work with customer to use Azure firewall or Azure perimeter to achieve deploy perimeter network for a security zone. So we complete the second video. Wait me for the third video to explain the Azure best practice when you work with customer using Cloud Action Framework.